Hello, everyone. Welcome to Online Presenters, a virtual Toastmasters Club. I'm Sunny Fridge, your Sergeant at Arms. Guests, please be aware if you would like to become a member, you must be a current or former active member of Toastmasters International. You must also have completed at least 6 Toastmasters official speeches. And if you have a significant amount of presentation experience, we would love to have you join our club. To do so, you would demonstrate your abilities in a 2 to 3 minute speech delivered during one of our club meetings. All requests for membership are subject to approval by our club members. If you have not already done so, please change your panel to ensure it displays your name and role. Hover over your video, right-click, and select Rename. Remember, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. We have members and guests from many countries throughout the world. As a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language or word usage that may be considered offensive or otherwise insensitive due to cultural differences. Please note that we will be recording the meeting. Your video and audio contribution may be used for club marketing purposes. And now, please help me welcome to the virtual stage our club president, Marianne Grady. Marianne, welcome. Welcome back. Welcome to the club again.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Online Presenters, where our club mission is to serve those who give online presentations professionally or who aspire to do so, whether that means public webcasts, live video, or internal company video conferences and screen sharing. This is the place for you. Here in the United States on Thursday, we will be celebrating Thanksgiving. Lots of food, family, and fun usually happen that day. The United States holiday of Thanksgiving is generally understood to be inspired by the harvest feast celebrated by the citizens of Plymouth Colony, later known as Pilgrims, and the Native Americans of the Wampanoag Confederacy in the fall of 1621. They had noted a few other celebrations before that date, but this is the one they have said is like the true first Thanksgiving. Now I'm going to give you a couple of dates to remember. If you're in need of a TLI, District 47 will offer one on December 7th. Andy Byrne brought to our attention a comedy improv meeting, and that's going to be on December 4th. If you have interest, please send me a message. And finally, we are going to be canceling our December 23rd meeting. So no meeting, but we'll resume a week later. So now, what you've been waiting for. Let's start our meeting. Tonight, our Toastmaster of the day is Mr. Jim Barber, 2-time TEDx speaker. So let's all put our hands together for Jim Barber and welcome him to the virtual stage.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good tomorrow, depending upon the appropriate time zone that I'm speaking to. Hi, Sil, I'm glad you made it. Welcome to welcome to an extra special meeting of online presenters. I say extra special because, frankly, every meeting of online presenters is special, but this one is different from our other special meetings. This one will be extra special. It's extra special in several different ways. One, we do occasionally focus on a particular topic, and we are doing that this evening, but we're doing something that we haven't done before. We are focusing on TEDx. We're leaving the Toastmasters stage for an hour, and we're going to be focusing in a different communication direction, but one that's very popular and has a lot of interest from a lot of people, TEDx. We are also different in that we are only having one presenter this evening. And so there will be that one presenter. There will not be evaluations. We will have limited helpers. We will basically not have anything else except this one presenter's presentation. And so when we say we're going to focus, we mean that. We are going to focus. We do have a couple of people that will be assisting in the meeting. Sunny Fridge is our timer this evening. Sunny, would you care to explain what you're going to be doing as timer?
With pleasure, Mr. Toastmaster of the Day. I will be the timer. Timing is important. We have one guest speaker today, and at green, at 35 minutes, I will show the green signal. At 40 minutes, I will show the yellow signal. And at 44 minutes, I will show the red signal. Once you see the red signal, guest speaker, you can wrap up. And when called upon, if necessary, I will give my report. Back to you.
Thank you, Sunny. If you're familiar with Toastmasters, you are familiar, of course, with the role of timer. I think every club has a timer, but the next role is one that is relatively unique to online presenters. It's generally unique to online clubs, and that is the chat monitor. The chat monitor this evening is going to be performed by our one and only Joni Laidlaw. Joni, would you please tell everybody what you're going to be doing this evening?
Thank you, Toastmaster of the Day. As the chat monitor, it will be my job to monitor the chat. No, it's not always possible in a short period of time to get in all your questions, but I'm here to make sure that we do it orderly. And if you're like me and you have a point that's just really, really burning, we don't have time to stop and interrupt the meeting. Drop it in the chat and we'll make sure that our presenter sees it so that she can answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Joni. And with that, we are just about ready to go. However, being the diehard pessimist that I am, I'm going to ask everybody to just zone out for about 20 seconds while I ask our presenter if she is ready to go. Jacqueline, are you ready? Is anything you need or anything like that? You are ready?
I am completely ready. Completely ready to go.
Outstanding. Then let's get started with this. Everybody ready? Okay, everybody hang on to your seats. Jacqueline Brooker is a fifth-generation entrepreneur, former CEO, and certified speaking professional who scaled businesses to tens of millions, coached gold medal Olympians, worked alongside Carmen Gallo in her 2024 Speak Like TED program, and helps experts turn their voice into true influence.
I hear you now. They said the host go another meeting. Okay.
Vivian, if you could
I'll
mute
let Mama
yourself,
get home.
please. Okay. Back to Jacqueline. Jacqueline, her guilty little secret. Ha-ha. Listen closely. She's had a love-hate relationship with TEDx Talks for most of her career. Today, you'll find out why. Her CEO mindset saw through the missed potential. Most speakers treat TEDx as a stage to be got, an end game, not the launch pad it's meant to be. So, get ready to rethink everything as Jacqueline reveals sharp strategies to turn one talk into a lifetime of opportunity. Please help me welcome Jacqueline Brooker.
Thank you so much, Jim. I'm grateful to be here and grateful also that I managed to sneak in just as we needed it. I am going to share screen today rather than go from camera. I can't believe this is happening with an online presenters group. However, we've got a tech glitch at this end. So we're having a little bit of fun this morning. And I say this morning because it's morning in Australia. So this is all about how to monetize and commercialize the TEDx talk. And the reason why I really wanted to speak into this is because it's the one thing that we mentioned. I have a love-hate relationship with TEDx talks most of my career. And there's a very clear reason for that. And I couldn't understand it. To start with, as much as I love TED Talks and a great TEDx talk, I thought that the brand was overrated. I thought the TEDx stage might be destroying the TED Talk brand. And it took me a lot of years to work through what was actually happening. And what was going on, what I actually noticed was every time I ran into somebody who had a great TEDx talk or who had been on a TEDx stage, there was more than half the time when I actually said to him, amazing, I love a great TED talk. I would love to connect. I would love to understand what it is that you talk about. I was told more often than not, the response was, oh no, please don't go and find it. I wasn't properly ready for it. I wish I'd done it on a different topic. I wish I'd done it on a different stage. The production's terrible. There were all these reasons why people didn't actually want me to go and find their TEDx talk once it actually made the stage. It was only in the last couple of years that I actually realized what was going on here. And that was that as somebody who's got, some would say the heart of a mercenary, but I have a very commercial focus from being a previous CEO and doing some pretty incredible entrepreneurial achievements. What was actually breaking my heart was I couldn't understand why, if a TEDx talk was something that you really wanted, was something that was on your bucket list, I couldn't understand why you then didn't want me to go and find it. And I realized the reason being was because you actually had not taken advantage of the opportunity, right? So many people have TEDx talks as a bucket list item, as something I always want to do, and don't really think beyond that. And yet the TEDx stage, even if your TEDx talk doesn't go viral, the TEDx stage is one of the fastest credibility builders that you can engage with. It is also a way of really deep diving what you know to be true about the world and the ideas that you have that can make a real difference and a real impact in the world. But none of that happens if you run at it. None of that happens if you're not ready for it. And none of that happens, most importantly, if you don't understand how to use it strategically. And this is when I realized that I needed to get over my love-hate relationship and start to work with people about what they need to do to actually take advantage or to leverage and maximize what happens with a TEDx talk. Now, the reason for this is it is a once in a lifetime opportunity that most people miss. And what I'd love to do, first of all, if you can get ready in the chat, and I will see whether I can have a quick look at it, but I'd love to actually get an idea of where you're at. So A is, it's a dream. I've always wanted to give a TEDx talk, but I haven't started anything yet. B is, I have an idea, but I'm not sure how to pitch or prepare. C is, I've applied or I'm in the process of applying and pitching, because that's a really important part of this process. D is, I've been selected and I'm preparing to deliver my talk. E is, I've delivered my TEDx talk and I want to know what to do next. And F is, I have no idea why I'm here, but I love hanging out with the cool kids, right? So sometimes we just simply love the environment. So if you can just let me know in the chat where you're sitting, amazing. A few A's, an E and an F, A's and B's, amazing. So we're all relatively early stage when it comes to our TEDx talk, and that's a great place to be, because what actually we need to have in place to really get the TEDx talk to work is we need to think about it in 3 different stages. What we need to think about is so we're getting 3 different stages. So with a TEDx talk, I'm going TEDx particularly here. With a TEDx talk, there is between 30 and 35,000 TEDx talks delivered around the world every year. On some days, there's 30 to 40 TEDx events anywhere in the world. Now, most of you will know that TEDx talks go up onto the YouTube channel, onto the YouTube platform, but 17 to 18,000 talks get loaded onto that platform. So not every talk makes it from the local stage to the platform. And then there's a third stage that we look at from a TEDx perspective, and that is, does it make the crossover to the TED.com website? Now, I happen to know that on this screen right now that Jim Barber has done exactly that, and I know that Tracer Savadago has done that as well, right? So there is 3 levels of achievement. And for some people, just having the local stage and the love and the ability to say that they've actually done it is enough, and some photos. For others, they're not interested in doing it unless they're actually going to get picked up on the channel on the platform. And then there's that third one again, which is in most people's bucket list because that's the crossover. So what happens with the crossover? How do you get the crossover from the TEDx stage to the TED.com? And how do you go from just being on the local stage to being picked up on the platform? Well, there's a couple of things that happen, and I'm not here to talk about your content. I'm here to talk about maximizing it, but I do a lot of work with content. To go from the local stage to the TEDx platform, your content must be good. It's got to meet all the rules of the TEDx stages and platforms. And it's got to be better than just people loving you. So it's got to follow the structure of a TED Talk. The content's got to be around a big idea. But what actually creates that transition from TEDx to TED.com? And what I've discovered with this, because I used to think that it had to go viral and had to have an amazing amount of views and that sort of thing. But actually what the criteria is the heart of a great TEDx talk. The criteria is this. The criteria is that it must be a great idea and it must be a big idea and one that's definitely worth sharing on a global basis. So if we track that back, then usually if you don't make it off the local stage, if you're not picked up by the platform, the talk is more about your experience. To get picked up by the platform and the YouTube channel, it's that it's an idea worth sharing. And to make the crossover to TED.com, it's a big idea that's worth sharing. So I want you to think about it in those levels because we actually need to think about that. So many people get surprised when they get a local TEDx stage and they don't make the channel, let alone the website. So I want you to really have that in mind because if you don't make it to the YouTube channel, everything I'm going to talk to you about today won't be of any use to you whatsoever. So really important that we're actually aware of that as we go through. Now, there is a lot of content coming. There is one person who's been in my sessions before, and she will tell you I can be a little bit like a fire hose. Wherever we can, Joni will bring questions in. But at the end of this, there will be a QR code for you to scan to get a copy of these slides and also bonus content. So I've got some swipe files and some prompts and all that sort of stuff in there for you, as well as what we call a plan on a page. So let's get moving because otherwise I'm going to be here. I'm going to be in trouble with the orange and the red slides. So I want you to think about your strategy around a TEDx talk, and I'm all about strategy. I'm all about how to and strategy. The strategy in your TEDx talk, the same as there are 3 stages that you can get, there are 3 stages in your strategy. The first one is you need to secure your stage. And that's all about the craft. That's about your message. That's about your content. That's about pitching and being accepted. You need to secure your stage. The second thing is you have to build visibility and engagement. I say to people all the time when it comes to professional speaking, any form of speaking, a good idea is not enough to generate a business or to create demand. You have to build visibility and engagement as you go, and you have to be willing to create some commercial outcomes. If you literally just want to do a TEDx talk to be able to say I've done it and you're happy with that, then that's amazing and you can continue to hang out with the cool kids. But most people are actually doing it because they want to make an impact. And if you want to make an impact, then you've got to actually derive some form of commercial outcome so that it actually gets some oxygen and some fire into it. So today, we're actually going to be looking at the second 2. Secure your stage is not part of the content today, although I can speak for 3 days on that, right? And teach on 3 days on that. We're going to focus on the second 2. So build visibility and engagement. And the second one of that is create commercial outcomes. And this comes together to create what I call the impact loop, because people see the TEDx talk being delivered as the thing. But I want you to think about it as a loop. It's like we've got to build engagement before, during, and after, which is a complete loop. And we've got to then use that to create a loop that brings commercial outcomes to life. So the impact loop is where I'm going to focus on for this session. The impact loop at a glance. Here we go. So there are 6 stages to the impact loop. So there's 2 phases, but there's 6 stages. It's what you do when you're selected. It's what you do pre-live event. It's what you do on the day of the live TEDx event. It's what you do pre-platform because there is a delay between the live event and you being approved to go up onto the YouTube channel. There's what you do in the platform launch, and then there's your post-launch momentum, right? These sections are really, and these stages are really important to understand because what happens with these is we get to understand that we've actually got certain steps to take. Now, today I'm going to focus very much on what we do from a content and engagement and strategy perspective. There are also different things that you can do, but I want to just actually bring the most impact to you today. So when we're doing this as well, one of the things that I want you to think about, my previous husband and I call him my starter husband. My previous husband and I, we actually owned real estate businesses. We had 2 very successful real estate businesses in Australia. And he used to say to the sales team, you can't sell a secret, right? And it was really interesting because sometimes the sales team would come back and they might have picked up a listing, but the vendor was determined not to pay for advertising and marketing. And my husband's question was always, well, great, you can't sell a secret. So what are you doing instead of the advertising and marketing? How are you letting people know that we have this listing available? So it was all about whatever you do, you can't stay a secret because you can't sell a secret. And here's the thing, right, is that when you do a TED talk, a TEDx talk, it is almost like a secret. So many people get famous in their own lunchbox for their TEDx talk when they could do so much more, right? It's beyond you. Now, what I want you to look at as well is, and I can't draw because we're not on the right camera, but there are 2 events in here. So there's the live event, and then there's your platform launch. You actually have 2 anchor events in a TEDx campaign, right? There's the day you deliver on stage and the day your video goes up on the YouTube platform. So there are 2 anchor events that create the key points in this entire campaign. So I want you to keep that in mind as we go. Then, and I will give you, so this is, I don't do slides like this, but this is actually extracted from a 1-page document for you that will be available if you want it. So I've got a plan on a page. So we actually take you through all those phases. They're on this previous slide. And then we actually give you timings and the key deliverables. So it's almost like a project plan on a page. There's 2 pages of it on here. But what I can tell you is that it's in a beautiful 1-page download. But I want you to think about this. In each of these stages of the campaign, there are things to do, right? There is timing to do it and there's key deliverables. And if you think about this from a project planning perspective, it starts to make a lot of sense, because what happens is if you want to commercialize, you can't wait until after it's gone live on the platform. You have to be ready all the way through. You have to have people buying in. You have to have a community of fans, and you have to have people who are actually buying into it, because otherwise, when you go to do whatever is it do after a TED talk to try and get some speaking gigs or to try and build your business or to get some consulting and advisory work, it really doesn't pull together. In Australia, we have a famous sports coach who had a mantra. In the heat of the battle, we don't rise to the occasion, we sink to the level of our training. And it's the same for this. You need to be ready if you actually want to leverage it. Like I said, if you don't actually want to leverage it, if you're happy just to have that there for posterity's sake and for your children and your grandchildren, then that's more than okay. So this is the plan, but in limited time today, I'm not going to cover all of it. We would be here, I would be in so much trouble. I'd be keeping you here until midnight your time. What I am going to do is run you through some key points, but know that all the rest of the points are actually fleshed out completely in the handouts that you can take advantage of at the end of this. So one of our strategies, key strategies that we use is what we call activate the champions. And this is actually stolen from great book launches in COVID and podcast launches. And the Activate the Champions is actually, when we're doing a podcast or a book launch, we would actually build a list of 100 champions. And that are people that love you, that are interested in your topic, previous clients, future clients, people that are in your networks and your communities. It might be the Toastmasters Club, it might be your Chamber of Commerce, but you might be your sports club. But people who are actually going to sit down and go through and be supportive. So we build the list of 100 champions, friends, colleagues. This is one time when I say that you can have your mother, your sister, and your dog on board, right? It's just literally about getting some spread. And what we're going to do is we're going to use them to share our social media. We're going to engage them early and share a plan with them. So one of the keys is we actually have to share a plan of what we want from them. And we're going to assign roles and lock them in. So I want you sharing on LinkedIn. I want you commenting on Facebook. I'd love you to talk about this on Instagram. We're going to be doing something later on, and I want you to be one of the main coordinators. When we have a live event, I want you to actually, be the moderator in the comments. So much like bringing a Toastmasters chapter together, we're actually going to activate 100 champions with a bit of a plan to help us throughout that whole 6 phases, right? And we're going to do that so we can activate the ultimate move, which is the watch party. And the watch party is something that we're going to do on the day that your video goes live on the YouTube platform. Right. So the same as a book launch, the same as a podcast launch, we're going to steal the magic powers that work for all of those, and we're going to bring them into your strategy here. Now, it's going to feel like it's actually a lot of content driven, a lot of marketing driven, and it is, because guess what you want on the other side of the TEDx talk going live on the platform? You want leads. You want business. How do we get that in this day and age? We create awareness. And we do marketing and content. So there's a lot of things that go down here. We have got swipe files, and we have got more information about how you activate champions in the handouts. So what I'd love you to do as we're going through is just start thinking about who could be your champions. Start just with 7 people. I love the number 7. Start just with 7 names who would become champions of your future TEDx talk, and start there. Right. And as I said, we've got swipe files for the invitations and the emails and the conversations that you need to have so you can reach out to them. What I want you to do, though, is even if you're not yet sure what you're going to be pitched on, just find 7 people who can say, hey, if I ever did a TEDx talk, could I count on your support for that? I don't need you to coach me, but I'd love you to talk about it in public with me. Just start seeding it. Because if we're going to commercialize this, what I find so incredibly compelling when I work with a lot of people, especially professionals, is they need to make money fast. They've got themselves to a stage where they need to make money fast, or they need to commercialize their IP, and they actually haven't built networks. They haven't built community. They haven't built connections. It's all one purpose only and one dimensional. So the whole strategy with this is to actually make sure that you're building a network and a community and connections around where you're going to go with this. Because if you don't, you can't leverage it at the end. There are some people I know that have got TED Talks who are desperately trying year after year to make it work, but it's because the groundwork wasn't put in the first place. Okay, so then we need to immerse the people with the content. So there are 3 categories of content I'm going to run through at a high level here. One is what we call countdown content. One is what we call audience engagement content. And then we're also going to go for total amplification. Now, as I go through these next few slides, there's quite a bit of information, right? We're going to start with countdown content first. And I'm going to give you some examples and some prompts, but please know that there is 2 or 3 here. And in the bonuses, should you choose to actually download them, there is 11 to 12 ideas and prompts against each one that you can use for your content, because half the reason why we don't get going is we don't have a starting point. Okay. So when it comes to countdown content, the first thing is the big announcement. Excited to share I've been selected as a TEDx speaker. I can't wait to present. Tease your idea out. Tease the journey. What's scarier, stepping onto the red dot or crafting the perfect idea? Follow along as I prepare for this perfect moment. Now, the big announcement thing is really interesting. At the moment, I can tell you right now, there are 5 people in my networks who have secured a TEDx talk and they don't want to tell anyone, right? Because imposter syndrome is at play. But what if I don't knock it out of the park? What if I actually get knocked off the program at the end? Because when you get a TEDx talk, you can still get knocked off the program at the last minute, right? The curators can still go 24 hours out. Actually, you're not actually coming to where we want you to come to, and they can still let you go. It's a bigger shock. But that actually also stops you from being visible and vocal. And if your big idea is good enough for you to put in the work to get a TEDx stage, then be proud of it. Right? Be proud. I'm hoping, because a lot of you are actually from the US, I'm hoping imposter syndrome is not as bad over there as it is here, and it doesn't pull you up quite as high. We've got a question there about what social media would you suggest leveraging to do this. For TEDx talks, I would always go LinkedIn first, followed by Instagram, especially if you're in any sort of professional services or expert or knowledge-based business. Really, really important. Okay. So it is really important for you to know that there is a platform to dominate for end game. So you might feel more comfortable on Facebook, but it will not get you clients. The way that I describe it is fans will not write check and Facebook's checks, and Facebook is full of fans. Instagram is where audiences will start to demand you, and LinkedIn is where people will engage you and pay you. So that's the way with anything speaking related, that's the way we look at it. Okay. So then we've got countdown content. What are the ideas? Now we've got 11 ideas for you, but I'm not going to give you all them now. A before and after, from a sketchy notebook idea to a TEDx talk, just 10 days until I step onto the stage. Reveal snippets of your talk. This one word will change everything. TEDx countdown, 7 days. Behind the scenes, the grind is real, 4 days until a TEDx stage. Now these are obviously just prompts. But the whole idea is to make sure that you're doing a countdown, not just doing the offensive way where people put up the timer and the 7 days. I've got 7 days for my talk. We don't care. Share something with me of value and use that to give us the countdown, right? So revealing snippets of your talk is another one. Red Dot Ready series. So talking about the red theme and things like that. So these are the sorts of things that we put on into our countdown content. Don't just say, I've got 7 days to go. Give a snippet of value, use a great visual. We've got visual cues in the handouts, but just think about what you're actually doing as you're moving into the TED Talk. The beauty of this is most of this content can be pre-prepared and batched, right? And you should also be taking some of it and sending it through your databases. And a quick heads up, if you're not building an email list or running a database, you are not going to be able to commercialize your TEDx talk properly. It's like any other business asset. So then we have ideas for the audience engagement. And these are things where, if possible, you link them to existing assets and artifacts, or you link them to existing things that you've already spoken about on your topic. So the TEDx talk is seen as just an amplification, the next step. So these are the kinds of ideas. If I could share one idea with the world, it would be TEDx is about bold ideas. What's one bold action you've taken recently? 10 days, 10 facts. Each day I'll share one thing I learned while we're preparing for this. So these are the things that are more about audience engagement. And again, we've got 9 or 10 of these for you. These are the things that are actually to get them engaged. It's not all about you. Okay. Really important as you're going through. Then the third category of content we can use, and this is just in the lead into the live event, is you can go for total amplification. So what I mean by this is things like this: time-lapse videos of getting ready and doing the things and doing the rehearsals. Color story posts. So this is like going into what the color is behind your TED talk. So colors also matter. There's a whole heap of stuff from Disney Pixar that talks about color matching to the mood and emotion you want with your speech. So color boarding your speech will create a deeper connection with your audience. Speech mood boards, so the actual mood boards that you've used, the storyboards and things like that. Interviews with others with opinions about your topic. Highlight the other speakers, make it personal. Like, I can't believe I hadn't heard this person's name before we all both got selected to speak on the TEDx stage. From what they're telling me, this is what we've got to look at. Highlight other people as well, not just you, right? So there's some ideas, because it's actually about standing out. Then from there, what we're looking at is, and what I'd love you to do is just make a note that you select 3 content ideas from across the sections. So just one content idea each. There is lots of ideas and prompts and visual cues and things like that, but just start small. Don't start with trying to do the entire campaign unless you're an overachiever and you're better off having it all mapped and you need to knock it out of the park really quickly. But you don't have to start big, just start small. Then there is the day of the live event. And on the day of the live event, I want you to be the hypey human. I want you to hype the event. I want you to hype the organizers. I want you to hype the other speakers. Have someone alongside you who's taking photos and doing the content for you if possible. But hype the event, hype the speakers, hype the organizers. Note to self, don't hype yourself on the day. And that may seem really counterintuitive, but is actually starting this whole cycle of reciprocity and generosity that your audiences will respond to. Hype the others. Be the hypey human for others on the day. You talked about yourself all the way in. You're going to be talking about yourself on the way out. On the day, be the hypey human. Get into everybody else's, right? Get them hyping you, but don't hype yourself on the day. It's arrogant and insular and can actually be repelling, right? So be generous and start the entire law of reciprocity going. So that's what you do on the day. Then, just watching the time, the watch party. right? This is actually for when your video is going to go live on the platform. So we're now talking about the pre-launch. So I think it's stage 4. It's the pre-launch momentum. So the champions, you want them identified and moving, and you want the watch party in place, right? So the champions we've already spoken about, but one of the things I want to make sure you do is you give them the plan. This is what the content looks like from me. This is what I'd love you to share. This is what I'd love you to comment on. These are the kind of words you can use. Give them a plan. Give them your hashtags as well as the hashtags for the event, and give them prompts and ideas for their own content. It's very easy to do because you know what you have now? We used to do this manually. You can now use ChatGPT or Claude or whatever your preferred platform is to do the basics. Don't just take what they say verbatim, but you can absolutely use AI to create the basics of the whole plan to give your champions. Then there's the content plan leading into your talk going live and your watch party. Because what we want to do is we want to make sure that people are getting involved and they want to show up to the watch party. And this is actually what you want the champions for. You want the champions for creating the hype about your video going live, and you want your champions getting people online for your watch party. Now, the content plan for this, yet again, it's content. Big idea. Not it has to be, but it can be pre-prepared. You don't have to do all of this at the last minute. You can pre-prepare. There are 7 ideas here. There are 11 ideas in the handouts. Big announcement post. Oh my goodness, I've just had confirmation that my TEDx talk on this topic is going live. I cannot wait to share it with you. I'll make sure to put the link in the comments below. Drop a emoji if you want to know when it's live, right? Big announcement post. Your reflection, what this means, not just for you, but for your audience, what they're going to learn. A highlight reel from the experience. Tag and thank your champions. Now, if you have 100 champions, you can do about 20 posts around that, right? Snippet or quote teaser. So grabbing a quote from it, not so much a snippet. TEDx have very big rules around how you use their video. So I wouldn't take a snippet, but I would definitely take a quote. A call to action to people to share if this resonates with them. Share and tag who you think could use this today. Audience-centric posts where you're asking the audience questions about the topic that you know are top of mind. So there's about 11 ideas that we've got in amongst all of that with the prompts and the visual cues. But you've got to do content. The best part about this is all of this bit can be pre-prepared. You can batch it and create it ahead of time. You don't have to do it at the last minute when you suddenly find out that in actual point of fact, your TEDx talk is going to the platform. So that is what we do there. Then what I want you to do is just drop for me in the chat so I can make sure what's got your attention right now with what we've already gone through. Like, I'd love to know what's actually got the attention. And I just clicked through too much before we go into this last bit, because this last bit is actually what really matters for commercializing it all. When I was actually in radio sales. Now, if you're in the US, you're probably not even going to relate to what I'm about to say. I was in radio sales in regional Australia 25 years ago. We only had AM radio, 1 station, and we were about to launch FM stations. But we had 2 forms of advertising. One was brand and awareness, which is what we've been talking about, and one was call to action. And we knew that if we didn't have brand and awareness advertising, that the call to action campaigns wouldn't work. So what I've given you so far is brand and awareness. But if you're going to commercialize, it's this next bit that really, really matters, right? And when you've got this together, you can actually really leverage what you do. This is actually why people are going viral. Like, if you've got 100 champions, if you actually put the time in, 100 champions spreading your talk when it goes live, you can't beat that. 100 champions getting people onto a watch party. Now, what's important about the watch party, which I forgot to mention, what's really important about the watch party is you actually host a Q&A afterward. Right? Otherwise, who's going to watch it? Because they can just go on the YouTube channel. But the whole idea is a Q&A. You gamify things, right? And you get people really involved and loving it, right? So this is really, really important. Now, Trace has just put into the comments about making $60,000 by people seeing her talk and reaching out for paid gigs. I love that. What I would love for all of you is that it's 6 figures and multiple 6 figures. So what we've been talking about so far is to actually create community, connection, hype around your TED Talk going live. Do the watch party. You know, We've done online book launches with like 1,000 people in them. So we can do the same with this. We've done podcast launches with 200 people in them. Do the watch party, do the Q&A, gamify it, because you know what you've also got out of that? You've got the next 6 months worth of content, right? Next 6 months worth of content. Graham, I'm going to come back to that comment in just a moment before we wrap out as well. Thank you for that. So thank you for letting me know what's got your attention, but let's move into this last phase of exactly how we commercialize. And there are 3 parts to this. You need to crystallize where you want to take them. And that's why, Graham, the comment that you just made is really important. Your big idea needs to actually deliver on the greater good. If your big idea isn't actually going to deliver on the greater good, then it's possibly something you need to revisit or go deeper. And I love the heart of TEDx talks, which is why I could never understand why I was so love-hate with them. Because the heart of a TEDx talk is to get us to think differently about something that will change the world, as Graham says, for the greater good, right? The truth is this: you can make a difference to the greater good, and you can hope that it goes viral, but you can also take control of a certain amount of that. And in my world, if you really want to impact the greater good, the more money we can actually generate from something to throw behind something that is for the better good, to elevate it, to accelerate it, to give it more visibility, to reach more people, right? If you want to make any impact, then sales and making commercial returns is actually where it's at, right? It's actually your oxygen. So many people say to me, we've got a lot of charity founders that we're working with at the moment, because they've realized if they can articulate their mission and their cause in a better way, then they can actually generate more money to do the work that they need to do on the front line. So even if we are 100% driven by for the greater good, and that is actually where most of us should start, our ability to monetize, to commercialize, and to make something more visible, that's actually what's going to make a greater impact. You know, Mother Teresa could not have done the work she did if she didn't have fiduciary backers. If she didn't have people actually paying for the things that she needed, right? So I want you to think about that. And that's why it's really important to commercialize it. There is absolutely the commercial mercenary in me that's like, if you've got a piece of expertise that is good enough to become a big idea on a TEDx talk, then you absolutely should be commercializing that and making money. And if your big idea can make an incredible impact in the world, it's actually more important that you understand how to commercialize this. In my world, I have a saying: it's not about that you want to make $1 million. It's about that you're good enough to make $1 million. Money is simply a benchmark of demand. So if you can create this into something that can be commercialized, it means that it's something that people are willing to pay for. It means that you have demand. Right? So really, really important to think about in that way. But the first thing is we need to crystallize. Then we need to repurpose, and we need to do outbound to get inbound. So these are 3 things that you must have to be able to commercialize. You have to crystallize. Now, what do I mean by crystallize? What I mean by crystallize is be crystal clear about where you want to take people. Why are you doing this? Where do you want to take them next? So even if you are just doing, and this actually comes up front, this is the paradox. You should actually be going into your TEDx talk knowing this up front. Where do you want to take them? So somebody falls in love with the idea that you've just shared. Where are you taking them next? Is it to a website? Is it to a blog site? Is it to a YouTube channel? Is it to, you can have a conversation with me anytime. Here's my phone number. I know someone who's done that, right? If somebody hears what you have to say and they fall in love with it, where do they go next in the journey with you? Have you got something for them? And from a business perspective, it could be, do you want to shift into professional speaking? Do you want to shift to content and expert speaking? Do you want to use this to launch your expert profile, your authority status? Do you want to use it to build a business? Do you want to use it to shift your business? What else would you be able to use this for? But the thing is, most people just going in and going, well, I hope that, right? Get really clear, because if you crystallize what you would like to take people to next, it makes the transition, your ability to commercialize a lot quicker. So you can't go back usually, generally, I should never say never, because someone will prove me wrong. Generally speaking, you cannot go back and commercialize in arrears, right? And what I mean by that is you have a window where your ability to commercialize and to move people to the next part of the journey with you has a finite window, right? So it's about making sure that you're thinking about this in advance. How do you want people to feel and where do you want them to go? Right? Now, Tanique, with taking them to your coaching program, I'll just put a heads up. Anything that sounds pitchy or too much about your work will not make the TEDx stage, right? But if you want to take people to the coaching program, what is the concept that underpins the results that you get that is different or slightly edgy to what anyone else? Because what will happen is if you can deliver that, people will fall in love with it and they will reach out to you and want to get you into their life for the coaching. They will reach out to you. There's so much I could talk about here, but it's really important that you know where you want to take them, but not so you can integrate it, but so that when they connect with you and they want that next point, you know exactly where you're taking them. And Tanique, I love how clear you are on that, right? So this is where people should start, right? Because if you do this really well, people are going to fall in love with you, right? People are going to fall in love with the idea, with the potential, and then you just disappear into the dark night. It's not going to help you or them. Okay, so be really clear. The next thing is you need to repurpose your TED Talk. Just having it on the platform and even on your website and as a link on LinkedIn is actually not enough, right? You need to actually repurpose the talk. And the ways we can do this is these are 7 ideas. There are more in the actual full handouts. Media, mainstream media. Take parts of your talk and turn them into press releases for mainstream media, or write articles, right? Media, podcast guesting blitzes. Like, who are the podcasts you actually want to be on because they get the big names on and they've got your audiences, right? You can do a podcast guesting blitz out the back end of this. There is a structure to it, but you can do it. Writing, articles, guest blogs. Guest blogging is quite often more powerful than your own blogging. Getting articles, once you've got a TED Talk, turn that into a series of articles that you can get into Medium, into Huffington Post, into The Economist, into whatever it might be, Harvard Business Review even. Create aligned and valuable lead magnets that you can use in your marketing. Build your speaker portfolio out, your reel, your one sheets, your website, build that speaker portfolio out properly and make sure that wherever people land, that your big idea is the key message that they're going to see, with a waiver, which I'm going to give you in a moment. Facilitate it, turn it into workshops and webinars, right? Use it for social proof, the imagery, the video, the testimonials, the quotes, the feedback. Use it for social proof. Don't just think your TEDx talk on the platform is going to be enough. One of the things that I come across all the time is the big mistake people make is it's not about your talk. Your talk is not enough. A great idea is not enough, right? So many people, most of my work is in professional speaking. So many people want to get into professional speaking because they've got great expertise or a great idea or incredible frameworks. They think that's enough. They'll just start speaking about it and the world will come to them. Now, sometimes they do. I've had that experience. I know that somebody on this call has had that experience. Sometimes they do turn up, but for the majority of the population, that's not how it is. So the waiver I'm going to give you is you must be prepared to do something to repurpose, to really leverage it, right? And even though it's your talk, it is not about your talk. What is the problem you're solving, the thinking you're shifting, or the utility to that person's audience? So the usefulness to that person's audience. You need to present that in how you pitch, in how you write, in how you reach out, right? Because your talk alone is not enough to guarantee you success. There are people with views on TED.com and TEDx that are anything up to 200 or 300,000 views who are making no money whatsoever. You only need 30,000 views to make money. It's nice to get 1 million and 2 million and 3 million and cross over to the TED.com website, but you can make money out of 30,000 views if you do it well, okay? But it's really important. So one of the things I want you to think about and share with us in the chat, if you're willing to, is what is the number one way that you would repurpose your TEDx talk and why? And it should tie in to where you want to take them next. Right? It really should tie in. So the coaching example, that should be a lead magnet, right? So in summary, I'm going to actually finish just about on time. There's 3 stages. You need to secure your stage, you build visibility and engagement, and create commercial outcomes. Now, all of that together, there's a lot of strategy in it. There's a lot of content in it. So what we've done is, I've mentioned a couple of times, the slide deck that you can actually go and download, I'll give you a QR code in a moment, has bonus content. So we've got swipe files, we've got prompts, we've got visual cues, a whole range of things. The entire impact loop with its project plan on a page is also available via the same link. And we'd love you to help us as well. We've just got a couple of questions about what you take away from this and what you've loved about us. So I'm going to flick to that right now. And I'm actually going to come out before the red, which Joni means hopefully we can grab maybe a comment or a question or 2. So if you just follow that through, you can get those downloads, because I know that there was a lot of information. And that's it. We're over to you guys.
I didn't realize that you guys meant me. I was so
No, sorry.
enthralled with
And I'm being Australian. My apologies.
No, it was my fault. I was so caught up in everything that you were saying. I was just, wow, I've got making notes and making lists and all that. Wait a minute, I'm the Toastmaster. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Yes, I think everybody is a little bit stunned at the moment. But if I'm reading your faces correctly, but we've got a few minutes now where we can actually talk one-on-one and you can get your questions answered. Some of the questions I think have been posted in the chat. If you have any questions that have been posted, or if you want to post any other questions at this point, Joni, I'm going to turn it over to you. What do you have for us?
Actually, our presenter was in keeping and in cue with what everybody was actually asking and incorporating all of the questions like a real pro. But I do have a question based on something that I posted. You said Facebook is for fans. Could you expound a little bit on that as it relates to monetization, as well as how do you tease without going into the information that is a part of your actual TED Talk?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first question, which is a great question, thank you, Joni. There is a way that if you're a coach, generally speaking, Facebook, you can monetize. Anything else, consultancy, advisory, training, educator, really you get raving fans on Facebook. So people who love you, but they never show up and buy you. Right. So it's literally fans don't write checks. So they love you. We have a triangle, and if I had time, I would share it with you. But basically, it's a red zone and a gold zone. And the top level of the red zone, which is still the danger zone, before you tip into what we call the gold zone, is called You're So Good. Right. So You're So Good. People's like, you're so good. You're so amazing. Your work's incredible. The world needs this. You know, I can't believe that we don't have this. Oh my God, you should be like everywhere. And you close the doors and it's still not commercializing. And that's because you're in the you're in the friend zone, the fan zone. So fans generally speak on Facebook, other than coaching. If your main business is coaching, absolutely monetize the living heck out of Facebook. But everything else, it's fans. And if what you want is any kind of speaking or expert status or thought leadership status, you have to go LinkedIn first, followed by Instagram. Does that help?
It does for me. Karen, I saw you raise your hands a few times. Do you actually have a question that you wanted to pose to our presenter?
Is me, Joni?
Yes, I noticed that you were raising your hands a few times. Do you have a question?
No. I wasn't. It was really
All right. Okay, thank you. So I was noticing overall, though, that the engagement we were expecting, you have far exceeded. So a lot of the question I'm thinking would have been, well, I see Andrew has a question, what not to do in monetizing your TEDx talk, but I think a lot of us are processing this information because we were thinking of how to write the speech. So I think while you're answering, Andrew, maybe more people will come up with additional questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Andrew, that question is amazing. Number one thing is make sure you don't break the TEDx rules, right? They're actually freely available on the website. There are experienced coaches. Don't go and pay a high ticket 25K program to get your stage. There are some incredible TEDx coaches. There are some incredible curators who will give you their time, but don't break the rules, number one, right? The worst thing that can happen to you is actually not making it onto the YouTube channel. It's actually making it onto the YouTube channel as flagged content, right? So they still put you up, but they red flag you, right? And that's actually worse than not going up. And so how not to make money. One of the other things as well is the what I said on the day, don't hype yourself on the day, hype the experience, the events, the organizers, the other people. And don't make everything about buy my thing. So as you're coming out the other end, don't make everything about buy my thing. Be very strategic and know where you're going to go. How to not make money is think that it's all going to come. One of the things that I didn't actually go through was you have to get outbound to get inbound. And what I mean by that is you have to get outbound in your activity to get any form of inbound coming in. Now, Tracy mentioned earlier, she's had a significant number of gigs come in. She's well networked, so people knew how to get to her, right? Most of us are not famous. Okay, so most of us have to actually get outbound. So not making money is you leave it too long thinking it'll just work, or you're not willing to actually do that initial outbound. So if you do outbound really well to start with, and by that I mean getting on the phone, doing the emails, making the meetings, all of that sort of stuff, it's actually up to you. So most people I find who are not making money is because they're actually not doing the activity. Full stop. Amazing. Does that answer it, Angela?
Yes, well, just yeah, thank you.
Yeah, amazing.
Andrew, I'm
Okay.
seeing Andrew's hand.
Yes, thank you, Jenny. Thank you very much, Jacqueline, for your presentation. It was very inspiring. The question I have is really a chicken versus egg question. Which comes first, the idea or trying to write the TED Talk? And you talked about all the structure in terms of finding 100 people or 10 people to do your promotion. As many of us have been leaders in Toastmasters, that's easier said than done. If you ask how many people can bring 10 new people into a Toastmasters meeting, people will raise their hand and then try and bring nobody. So the question is, which comes first, the chicken or egg? Realizing that there's a whole structure once you get there, or to find the right idea, or, obviously with 30,000 TED Talks going on annually, everybody's had all the ideas already done. So
yeah, I love this. And I love this so much because I'm really passionate about it's not an either or, unfortunately, but where do you start? You absolutely start with the big idea and with drafting the talk. And the reason why I say drafting the talk, one of my clients recently got shortlisted for a TEDx stage. And then in the process after that, they actually really helped to hone it into a truly big idea. So you have to have it enough that you get attention and you align with the theme, but you shouldn't have it enough that you've locked into it and rehearsed it and know it word for word. So my big thing is always get the idea super clear, right? Know that it's something that's going to resonate. And for those of you who are worried, there are some ideas that you hear and you go, look, that's been done so many times. But if you've got a unique focus to bring to the table, and one of the ways that we test it is we actually get you to come up, if you're working with us, we actually get you to come up with 17 bold statements of claim about your big idea. And if you can do that, then it's a big idea. So bold statements of claim. So not like, I think this is a great idea, bold statements of claim. And once you can do that, you find that you've actually got a bold idea. So the idea absolutely has to come first. You cannot go on a TEDx stage and just adapt it to whatever you see the current theme being, because it won't last for you. So the previous question about how do you not make money, you not make money by doing something that you think is trendy or going to get you that stage. You make money by something that comes from deep within you. Then when it comes to the other bit about the 100 champions, this is the bit that's really interesting. So if you're going to get 30, guess what? It's better than none, number one. But the thing that I tell people to do all the time is pick up your phone. Now, I don't know what it's like in America, but in Australia, I've had the same number now for, oh, sorry, didn't mean to show my wedding photo. I had the same number now for 21 years. And it's just ported over all the time. So when I actually don't search for a name, if I actually pick up my phone and scroll through my contacts, you would be dumbfounded by who's in your phone, who you can actually reach out to, reconnect with, have a conversation. And then after, you don't do it in the first conversation, but most people can actually fill 50 to 60 of those names in the 100 sheet just by scrolling their phone. Does that make sense? But unfortunately, it's not an either or. Amazing.
I'd like
Next.
to ask a quick question, if that's okay. I noticed in the chat that Jim and Teresa both said they didn't have a plan or they didn't implement a lot of your ideas tonight. I wanted to find out how that impacted their experience.
I think Teresa would definitely have opinion on that. And Jim?
Yeah, I think by the time my talk got released, I was out of gas. I had used all of my mental bandwidth just getting on the stage and executing my talk. And so I think that I'm thinking about doing a second TEDx talk. Right now is where it's a good time to start laying the foundation for all of that before I go into the business end of trying to put this thing on stage. And where it's like I can pull together the materials a lot easier because I have the bandwidth for that. And just knowing, I think that it's a preview of what's to come later. But for me, when my talk got released, I was like, I wasn't interested in drawing a big audience for it. I was just happy that it was over. And I have a weird story with mine is that Tim Ferriss, the guy who is the 4-Hour Work Week, he found my talk before I did and shared it with his 6 million social media followers. And that's how I found out my talk got released. And I was like, holy crap. Like, what am I going to do? And that's like the gift and a curse because I wasn't ready when he flexed his network. I didn't have a website. I didn't have a strong social media presence. There was nowhere for anybody to consume my content. And even if you did fall in love and want to like have more of what I was all about with my talk, there's absolutely nothing out there. And even today, the 5-year anniversary of it was on Saturday and there's still nothing. So I goofed it up. There's a gravy train available and I missed it completely.
Yeah.
I'm sort of in the same direction as Teresa. It's when the TEDx opportunity came up, it was not a good time for me to do it, but I hated to waste an opportunity. So I went ahead with it. But because of personal challenges, I basically wasn't able to do the things that you've recommended this evening for me. But even if I had been able to, frankly, I didn't know about them. Oh, I wish I had had this program a year ago. And there's just no way now. But I guess I do have a quick question just for myself. It wouldn't apply to the other people here. But given that I did it and I didn't do it right, so to speak, would you recommend doing another one, doing another one and doing it right this time? Or is there some way to salvage what I've already done?
Of your 2 talks, I went and watched them after our briefing call. Which one do you love?
I'm sorry?
Of the 2 talks you've done, which one do you love?
Oh, the first one had audio difficulties, so it was a good talk, but it's kind of hard to experience. So I would say the second one.
Yeah, okay. So you can still, from that repurposing perspective, you can still do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You absolutely can still do that and do some direct outreach. And I'm assuming, Jim, with your background, that you do have a network and a database and LinkedIn networks. You can absolutely go back and do that. No, we all say that, I think. I'm teaching people every day about it, and sometimes I look at my own, I'm like, oops. So you can absolutely go back and do it from that repurpose bit on and work out what you're going to do with it. Thought leadership pieces, big ideas actually are never dead as such. You won't maximize it, but you can definitely repurpose it still. If you're going to do a third one, I would do it when you know this is the legacy play, right? And I would do it so that you've actually got the structure all in place before you even hit go, so that you can really bring it home, because you do have really good ideas, right? So I would go back first of all and see what happens when you repurpose the other one, because true thought leadership and big ideas never actually dies, right? It might evolve, but it never actually dies. And when it's a big idea, it comes from your core, right? So you can still do it.
Okay.
So I would start there first. And then if you chose to do a third one, do the full strategy. Now, one of the things that I'll say to you as well, sometimes we feel like we don't have the resources or the team or the access to people who can do the things. And for us to learn some of it seems a little bit hard. One of the things to do is to think about other opportunities that you can leverage. So now with ChatGPT, getting your content plan together is not difficult. And if you trained it in your voice and you've trained it in your speech and things like that, it shouldn't be difficult as a foundation. As I said, not verbatim, as a foundation. The other thing is we all have access to marketing interns through universities, right? We all have access to communications and mass communications interns. We all have access to that sort of thing through universities. Even if it's not in our home city or hometown, we can access that, which usually gives you 10 to 12 weeks anywhere in the world, 10 to 12 weeks access to someone 1 or 2 days a week who can do this for you because they're digital native, right? You just have to frame it. Also, if you've got children or grandchildren, right, who are involved, or children or teenagers or young adults in your village who would just love to do it for the kick of doing the project with you, right? Think about the resources. Like, so many people say to me, I can't afford a team, or I can't learn this. I'm like, you know, I'm a big believer in Brendan Burchard, like the gap in the game. Who, not how, sorry. Who, not how. Or is it Dan Smith? One of them. Who, not how, right? Think who, not how am I going to do this? Get the strategy and think who can help you do it, because we all have people in our networks. If we get clever and creative, we all have people who can help us with it.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. I saw a comment from Kathy in the comment about this is more aligned to an online business. Is this more aligned to an online business? No, it's actually aligned to any business, because what we've got to think about with social, digital, and TEDx is that they are merely channels to a market. Right. So it is any business anywhere, they are channels to a market. Unless you're working in very exclusive, high level venture capital, billion-dollar acquisitions and things like that, social, digital, and TEDx talks are simply channels to market for your marketing. So it's for all businesses, no matter who you are. Amazing. Have we got any other questions, Joni?
Jacqueline, can you go back a little bit and talk about the application process? I know we didn't touch on that much for this particular talk, but I know there were a few folks that had it. And what I appreciate about what you did is there's this lifting the veil on what the really great people do and what they do differently. So it's one thing to get on the stage. It's this is the part that very few people actually ever see. So like, well, there's books and other trainings to get you on the stage. This is the part where a lot of people don't touch on. But can you talk about, like, so I posted in the chat about the link of all the TEDx talks that are the official TEDx talks. So how far in advance do people typically think about applying, and what's the process? Can you just give it a high level overview?
Yeah. So this is what's really interesting as well, because there's such an influx now of people selling high ticket coaching programs to get you on a TEDx stage. A lot of the information has disappeared from the public sphere. So here's some of the things that you need to understand. Number one, every TEDx talk has a theme and it changes every year. If your TEDx idea, if your bold idea doesn't match their theme, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're not going to get it, right? That's number one. So you have to discover their theme. The application process also changes. Some will actually not take any applications at all. It's who they reach out to that they think they want for their theme. Others will take a pitch process, which is a written document. These days, it's more likely to be a video pitch, and some will also have an open mic night. Now, they are scheduled usually between 3 and 10 months in advance. Let me tell you now, anyone who's calling for speakers through an application process 3 months out, do not touch them. The reason being is as curators and licensees, they are not investing in their program, in you, or in the production. And you will have a TEDx talk that you want to hide from the world, right? So really, really important with that. You have to have it ready. So you have to be able to explain what your big idea actually is and why it matters, and the shift you're going to create in the perspective of the audience while you're speaking. So this is not a pitch about your experience and your credibility role. This is the big idea, why it matters now, and where you're going to take people by the time you finished your talk. But the biggest thing is to understand that the theme is the most important thing. If a TEDx curator or licensee has asked you to fill out a form via their website, do not bypass it, because they will not look at it. They will only look at people who apply the way that they do. You can pitch openly through LinkedIn direct messages. Every curator I've spoken to, it drives them freaking crazy. And the only reason why they do it is because now and again, they find something worthwhile. It's not a good strategy. The other thing is check whether or not, probably about 30% of TEDx stages are local content only, right? And what they mean by that is it's speakers in their local town, community, or city only, right? So really important that you actually match all of those criteria. You need to have a fairly clear idea of what your bold idea is. So my client I spoke about before, that they've actually helped really reshape it into almost like a movement rather than just a big idea. I mean, that's an exceptional curator, right? Even into a movement. She had a really well-formed, bold idea. Like it wasn't like, oh, I think it could be this. She was firm. She knew where she was taking people to. She knew the problem that it solved. Just the collaboration with the curator has forged it into something phenomenal, right? When you're looking for what stages as well, go and look at how many they've got on the platform. So Seattle, where Tracer did hers, they get a lot of their speakers up onto the platform. There's one event here in Australia where they get less than 10% of their speeches onto the platform, right? So go and actually have a look at that. Go and see how many people are on the committee. If there's like a number of coaches and there's a big production crew and there's a lot, like if they've actually got a big volunteer crew and they've been going for 3 to 5 years or more, that's where you go. I recently was TEDx coach. One of my TEDx coaching gigs was for a brand new one here in Australia. It was a nightmare. They were trying to do it as a husband and wife team pulling on family, right? It was an absolute nightmare. We fortunately got 80% of them up on platform, and I'm going to own it. I think it's because they brought me in and I actually fixed up all the content. But from a speaker experience perspective, it was not great because they were just trying to nickel and dime it. Okay. So look for sustainable stages, unless you deliberately want to get on one that's brand new because you know that that's an easier application process. Also understand that, so for example, Melbourne is one of the biggest ones in Australia. There's a 12-week compulsory speaker coaching program with it. Some will have that. What I also want you to understand is actually a lesson I learned via Tracer. So I know Tracer because she came onto an interview panel, an experiences panel for us with the Carmine Gallo program. And you do have a choice. If you want to use a different coach and your gut is telling you you need something different, follow it. But the application process itself is a bit ambiguous. Just look for that criteria, understand what their theme is. If the theme's not published anywhere, go and find it. All the dates are published publicly on the TEDx.com website. You don't have to break your back. Finding curators and licensees is sometimes harder. Finding the application process is something harder, but it's all there. Does that answer the question, Tracer?
Yeah, I think that's great. But I also kind of want to be a little bit more optimistic too, is that while it's a process and it's a challenge, it's also, I think, I don't know, Jim, if you would say this, but to me, I feel like it's a legacy career defining achievement. And I'm really glad that I did it, because it's one of those things that it makes you a better human, better speaker, the whole
Yeah.
process, I think, is really exciting. Would you say that, Jim?
I would agree completely. The entire thing, the application process, the giving the TED Talk, everything. If you can't do it right, it's going to be aggravating. It's going to be frustrating, but still do it. Don't. It's
Yeah.
better to do a poor job if it's the best that you can do than not to do it at all.
I love
That would
that.
be a shame.
I love that. One of the things as well, just going back to like, I'm very big on how do we do this? And not just so that we can do it, but so we understand what needs to be done. But one of the rules that I have a mantra with is, and it comes from, I was an industrial relations negotiator for a long time, which I don't know whether you know what that is in the US, but industrial relations negotiators, employees and unions. And I was on the side of the employer and broke the unions. And one of the things that really surprised people was I had no idea. I didn't come from the right background. I had not gone through university. I didn't have my master's. I didn't have my PhD. I was up against barristers. And someone asked me once, how did I know how to do it? And this is my mantra for everything. Like, how did I get so good at it? And it was a quote that came from Einstein. It was before there were memes on the internet, so I think it was actually his. But there was a quote that came from Albert Einstein. It was, first you have to learn the rules of the game, and then you have to play them better than anybody else, right? If you don't know the rules of the game, you can't get on the field. And once you're on the field, that's where the fun begins, right? So understanding what it is, that's the thing that you need to understand.
And there are a lot of rules. I signed up to be a speech coach for TedX Jacks, and they sent me a book of rules. And I thought that was very interesting. Do they give that to the participants as well? Because it helps you
They
look at it
kind of do.
differently.
I'm always surprised by how many people have given a TED talk and never seen the TEDx rules, a TEDx talk and never seen the rules. They're freely available on the internet. You don't need to wait to get a book. They're freely available. They are copious documents. Some of them contradict each other, so it's kind of fun to work your way through it. But, you know, I can tell you now, everyone who makes it onto the platform, so the 18,000 out of 30 that make it onto the platform, they've met the rules. So yeah, but you have to be aware of them. So again, like I was saying, know the rules of the game and play them well. Because there's a lot, as you say, Marianne, there's so many.
Well, I think we're at 9 o'clock right
Yep.
now. So
I was
Jim,
fixing
I'm
to
going
do
to ask
that.
you to wrap up.
Okay, I was just fixing to do that. All I want to do is basically wrap up to say that we're going to have to break because it is a Toastmasters meeting and we end at 9 o'clock. That's what we're supposed to do. So I'm going to return control to our president, Marianne Grady, but I want to tell everybody that we will, as long as Jacqueline can do it, we will stick around after the meeting for further questions, for further talking and that sort of thing. So we're just simply ending the formal meeting, but this is not ending what we're doing. Marianne, I'm going to give it back to you and you can do your presidential thing.
Well, Jacqueline, I have to thank you for this amazing session, because this is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. And there was so much information. I hope I can read all my copious notes, but it was fantastic. So thank you so much. And thank you for all our guests. We had quite a few guests this evening. And if anyone is interested in considering coming back to our meetings as a guest, because this is not a typical meeting here tonight. This was more an educational session. Please reach out to Andres Malenko. He's on your screen somewhere, and he can give you any details that you might like to have. But I want to just shout out about, we have the TLI on December 7th. We have the Comedy Improv, and it's in another club, but Andy has the details of it, but I just thought that was an interesting one that you might like to hear about. And we will not have a meeting on the 23rd. I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful Thanksgiving if you're celebrating. And I just really want to let you know that I am thankful for all of you because it's just been a wonderful experience for me to be with you. So thank you, everybody. And I'm going to give it to Joni if she wants to fill any roles.